$4 per hour. That's a great deal. Hi, my name is Michael, and in this video I'm going to show you what to watch out for when hiring so the hidden costs don't add up and sneak up on you. I will show you why hiring cheap can be expensive. So let's dive in. When we try to evaluate an employee, we are essentially looking at a very simple formula. On one side, we have the value the employee creates, and we deduct the cost. And obviously we want this to result in net gain, so the value is higher than the cost. And we try to avoid the situation when the cost is higher than the value, resulting in net loss. So first of all, let's talk about the value, what it actually is. The first perspective to consider is the business perspective, and that is mainly profit. But in this case, it is easy to measure and quantify if the employee has a direct impact on profit. So that could be the difference between a PPC manager and a supply manager. With PPC manager, it is easier to evaluate their impact on profit than with the supply manager, because PPC manager can affect our bottom line directly. So to understand the value of a supply manager, we have to take a look at our own perspective. And we have two categories here, our time and our mental capacity. Because the supply manager may not affect the bottom line directly, but they can save us a lot of time and a lot of our mental capacity, so we can then focus on something else that can actually grow the business. And it's very important to define our goal when we start hiring. What is the goal? Are we trying to save some time? Are we trying to increase our profits? Or are we trying to save some of our mental capacity? Because if we don't define our goal, it is very hard to measure it and evaluate it, whether the employee is worth it or not. We can't really understand the value they are bringing to our business if we don't consider our goal and all of the perspective of the business and our own as the owner. So let's take a look at this quick example, hiring a PPC manager. So let's say we are paying them around $1,000 per month as a fixed salary, and they managed to improve our ACOS. So we now make around $800 more per month with our PPC. So the question is, was it worth it or not? And it really depends what was our goal, right? Because if we consider our personal perspective as well, let's say we used to spend around 10 hours per month on our PPC, and our average personal hourly rate is around $50. That's basically our average monthly profit divided by our average hours worked per month. So we can say that we are saving around $500 per month just in our time. And let's say we no longer have to check PPC every morning, so we are also saving a lot of our mental capacity each day. So as you can see, if we would consider only the business perspective, it wouldn't be worth it because we are paying them $1,000 and they are bringing only $800, right? So we are losing there. But if we consider our personal perspective and let's say our goal was to save the time so we can then focus on something else that would grow our business even faster, let's say marketplace expansion, product expansion, it is definitely worth it, right? Because we are saving 10 hours, we don't have to check the PPC, so it is worth it, even though if we look solely at the profit, it is not. So now we understand the value side of the formula. So let's take a look at the cost. And we talk about the cost of the employee. The first thing is obviously the salary. There are some hidden costs we really tend to forget about. So I will now show you all of the costs so you are aware of them and you can quantify them to help you evaluate the worth of your employee. Because if we take a look back at our formula, we can now calculate the value, but if we are not aware of all of the costs, it is possible that we are actually not even realizing it, but we are in net loss because of all of these hidden costs. So let me now show you exactly what those costs are. The first one is training. That's the onboarding period and that's your time investment. How much time you actually spend with them to train them, to explain everything and to get them up to speed. Calls, answering questions, explaining procedures and so on. And that is your time investment. And you can once again easily calculate the cost of this by using your average hourly rate, right? And that is also one of the reasons why we focus on systems, because I say that employees can leave, but the systems stay, right? So we rather spend more time on the systems and less time on the onboarding and training period. Because as you can imagine, if you have the procedure in place, you have the system in place, you can onboard them faster. And if they decide to leave, you can simply replace them and make the onboarding period shorter. The next hidden cost is the communication. And here we are mainly looking at speed and accuracy. And as you can imagine, this could be a huge time sink if they are taking a lot of time to reply or we need to ask for clarification every single time because they are not telling us what we need, right? So that can be a lot of back and forth. They are not leaving task updates properly, so we need to send them a message, ask them about the task, and so on. So you can imagine that you can spend a lot of time there just talking to them, trying to get the information. The next hidden cost is actually managing them, right? Making decisions and our level of confidence in them. If our level of confidence is high, we are comfortable to transfer the accountability for large decisions to them. But if confidence is low, we still want to make the key decisions, right? And obviously this takes, once again, time and also our mental capacity, right? And obviously mental capacity is hard to quantify, but I personally try to protect it the most. So managing and basically stepping into the process and making the decisions. And ideally, we want to minimize this as well so we can actually step out of the process and focus on something else once we delegate the process. The mistakes. First of all, we need to do some monitoring to identify these errors and actually fixing these errors, which is obviously taking our time, but it also is the cost of the error itself, right? Let's say that the PPC manager decides to target an irrelevant keyword and we spend a few $100s there. The next hidden cost is the cost of replacing them if they decide to leave or you decide to fire them. And this is probably the most discouraging thing about building a team, because we need to repeat the hiring process, obviously we spent time there, and also the training period. So ideally, we will try to eliminate this cost completely and hire the right person on our first try. And lastly, it's speed, the time it takes them to finish a task. And you have to keep in mind that if they don't feel fairly compensated, they will simply work more, right? If they feel like their hourly rate is not fair, they will simply track more hours than they actually work. And really here, you should expect huge differences. I remember back when we were hiring our brand manager, we were screening a lot of candidates. And we had a test task and some people managed to finish it in 3 hours, other people in 4 hours. But there was this guy who finished in like 50 minutes. And now you can say he did the exact same job in 50 minutes without mistakes, without errors. 50 minutes versus 4 hours. So you can essentially pay him 4 times more than everyone else, and the total cost for you would be the same. So going back to our example with PPC Manager, considering all of these hidden costs. So let's say with the training, we spent around 3 months getting them up to speed, 20 hours of calls and training sessions. So we can calculate the cost of this using our average hourly rate, 20 times 50, $1,000. Then we have the communication. Right? Maybe they are slow, maybe we need to ask for clarification often, so we spend around 1 hour per week going back and forth with them. Once again, 4 weeks times $50, that's around $200 per month. And then managing, we have to ask them for updates, making key decisions, monitoring them to catch up errors. And let's say it takes us around 2 hours per week. So once again, 2 hours, 4 weeks, $50 per hour, that's around $400 per month. We are not really paying this money, but that's our time that we could be spending elsewhere, right? And this becomes a vicious cycle. Because if we are making the decisions, we are monitoring them, maybe we are losing confidence in their abilities to make decisions, so we decide to make more decisions, more monitoring, which takes more of our mental capacity. And basically, we take more time to manage, more time to communicate if we don't feel confident in their abilities to manage that particular process. And the biggest problem is that not only that the costs go up, that we have to manage them, we have to communicate them, we have to onboard them for a long period. It also means that the value goes down, because as you remember, part of the value was the time we were saving. So if we have to manage them and communicate, we are spending our time there. So it also decreases the time we saved by hiring them, right? And this can really add up really quickly and change our formula, the equation from net gain to net loss, without us even realizing it. And the thing is that the hidden costs tend to be higher with cheap labor. So imagine if we could eliminate or at least minimize the hidden costs. We could essentially double the salary we offer. In this our example with the PPC manager, or with my example with the brand manager. If he's just so much faster than everyone else, we are minimizing all of the hidden costs. So we can basically offer them more and use that offer to attract higher level labor, more talent. So the question is, do we get what we pay for? The more we pay, the better the employee. Well, that really would be a dangerous assumption. Because once again, it depends. Is $1,000 per month good? It's all relative. It depends on the price levels. It depends on their expertise, right? If you are looking at the Philippines, $1,000 per month is pretty good. If you are looking at the US, probably not so much. So what to do? I recommend you to play it safe, and I will now show you exactly what to do to know how to attract the higher talent with your offer. So what we essentially want to do, we want to maximize the value and minimize the hidden costs so we can then offer more on the actual salary. So first of all, we develop the system that will help us to maximize the value. Because we have a system in place, we have the procedures, so we can get the most value out of a single employee. And once we have the system, it is fairly easy to determine and define the requirements because we know exactly what we want them to do, so we can define the requirements and put them in our job ad to attract the right candidates. And once we have the candidates, we need to do a screening process to analyze the market. And when we analyze the market, we will see the relationship between salary and expertise. Because when you screen dozens of candidates with tests and questionnaires, which is the hiring process, you will start to understand the salary range for each competence level, right? Because if you have like 30 or 40 candidates, you will see like who is the low level, what's the low expertise level, what's the mid level, and what's the high level, the expert level, right? And the way we do this, we ask them to tell us their desired salary, their desired hourly rate. So you can then see, let's say that the low level is asking for $8 to $12 per hour, the mid level maybe 12 to 20 or 18, right? So you can have this range and understanding of the salary range for each competence level. And the differences will be very clear, so it will be easy to categorize the candidates once you have a lot of data. Let's say 20, 30 candidates. You will be able to tell which candidate is which level and also use their salary range to define the salary range for the competence level. So we are then understanding the market and we can make an offer to attract the right candidate based on our requirements. I also recommend you, once you decide to hire someone, to start on the lower end of that range and then tie their salary to their performance. Because if they are confident in their abilities, they will have no problem with that. I also recommend you not to hire for the business you have, but to hire for the business you want. So if your goal is to build a business for the next 3-4 years, do not hire someone for just 6 months if you know you will have to replace them eventually. Do not hire them at all. Hire someone who can stay with you for the long term. So you may be hesitant to pay a little extra, but I believe that the more expensive labor is often cheaper in the long term. And well, what's more expensive than hiring the wrong person? It's not hiring at all. Because if you hire the wrong person, at least you can learn from your mistakes. Because we need to understand if someone can do the same job as us for less. We are losing money every time we do it ourselves. And if you are not sure how to manage a remote team, make sure to watch this video. Well, and that's pretty much it. See you next week.